My sister bought the plant at a garage sale 3 weeks before everything went wrong. It was nothing special. A wide, waxy houseplant with big flat leaves, the kind you see in every dentist's waiting room. She paid $2 for it, set it on the windowsill in the living room, and forgot about it. I'm the one who noticed something was off first. It was a Tuesday night. I was watching TV alone, my sister asleep upstairs. The room was dim, just the blue flicker of the screen cutting through the dark. I wasn't paying attention to the plant. I never paid attention to the plant, but something made me look over at it. One of the leaves was facing me, not turned toward the light, not leaning toward the window, angled directly at my face, like it was watching. I stared at it for a second, told myself I was being stupid, and looked back at the TV, but I kept glancing at it. Around midnight, I finally got up to go to bed. I walked past the plant and stopped. There was something on the surface of one of the leaves. A texture, a pattern. Like the leaf had folded and creased in a very specific way. It looked like a face, not a human face. Not quite. The proportions were wrong. The features were pressed flat, like a face shoved hard against a window from the other side. 2 small dents where eyes would be. A long crease running down the middle like a nose. And at the bottom, a thin horizontal split that looked exactly like a closed mouth. I told myself it was just how the leaf had grown. Plants do weird things. I turned the light on, looked closer, and the texture was definitely there. But in the bright light, it looked less threatening. More like a coincidence. I went to bed. The next morning, my sister was already up when I came downstairs. She was in the kitchen making coffee. I looked at the plant right away. The leaf was smooth. No face. Nothing. I almost said something to her but stopped myself. That night I sat up late again. Around 2 in the morning, half asleep on the couch, I heard a sound. Very quiet. Almost like paper rustling. I opened my eyes and looked at the plant. 2 leaves were facing me now, and both of them had faces on them. The same flat, pressed-in features, but more defined than the night before. The idents were deeper. The mouth lines were longer. And they were both pointed directly at me, with a stillness that didn't feel like a plant. It felt like something pretending to be a plant. I walked over and crouched down in front of it. Up close, the faces were worse. The texture on each leaf was too deliberate to be natural. Every fold and crease followed the exact lines a human face would have. And the expressions looked scared, not blank. Not neutral, scared. Like whatever made those faces had pressed into the surface of the leaf, while it was terrified. And the terror had stayed there, locked in. I backed away and went upstairs. I didn't sleep. I told my sister the next morning, showed her the plant. The leaves were smooth again, and she looked at me like I was losing my mind. I couldn't blame her. But that night she came and woke me up at 3 in the morning. She was shaking. She said she'd gotten up to use the bathroom and walked past the top of the stairs. From there you can see the living room below. She'd looked down at the plant. 5 faces spread across the leaves, all looking up at her. She said they looked like people screaming. We turned every light on and went down together. The faces were gone. Just a normal plant sitting in its pot. Leaves catching the light like nothing was wrong. We didn't throw it out that night, and I hate that we didn't. We told each other there had to be an explanation. We said all the things people say when they don't want to believe what they saw. We should have thrown it in the trash right then. 4 days later, our neighbor Mark came over for dinner. He was the first to see a face, while someone else was in the room with him. We were all 3 sitting at the table when he put his fork down and went quiet. He was staring over my shoulder. I turned around. The plant was on the windowsill behind me. One of its large bottom leaves was turned toward the table. The face on it was looking directly at Mark, and it looked exactly like him. Same wide forehead, same heavy jaw, the same deep-set eyes pressed flat into the surface of the leaf. Same expression he had right now, which was pure frozen horror. He pushed his chair back and stood up and pointed at it and said, "What is that?" We tried to explain. He didn't stay for the rest of dinner. My sister and I sat there after he left and stared at the plant. The leaf had gone smooth again. We tried throwing it out after that. My sister carried it to the back door and set it next to the trash cans outside. We went back in and locked the door. The next morning it was on the windowsill again. She drove it to a dumpster 3 streets away and threw it in, came home. We waited. 3 hours later it was on the windowsill. We stopped trying after that. I started noticing what triggered the faces. They appeared at night. They appeared when we were afraid. When I was anxious or scared or even just unsettled, I'd look over and a new face would be pressed into one of the leaves, always looking at whoever was most afraid, always wearing that same expression, terrified, screaming without a mouth open to scream. I started to wonder where the faces came from, whether the plant was making them or just showing them, whether something had gotten itself into our house through that garage sale, wearing its smooth green leaves, waiting to be brought inside. I wondered whether the faces were copies of us or records of other people. Every person who had ever been afraid in front of it, pressed into the surface of a leaf, frozen there. Their last expression, the one that stayed. I stopped going downstairs after dark. I started doing everything I could to not feel afraid, because I didn't want my face on those leaves. I didn't want whatever that thing was to see something worth keeping. The last night was 2 weeks after the dinner with Mark. I woke up at 4 in the morning for no reason. Just opened my eyes in the dark and knew something was wrong. I didn't go downstairs. I lay there listening. After a minute, I heard my sister's door open. I heard her go down the stairs. I waited. She didn't come back up. I waited 15 minutes. Called her name. Nothing. I got up and went to the top of the stairs and looked down. Every light in the living room was off. I couldn't see the plant, but I could hear something. A soft rustling sound with no wind to explain it. I turned the stair light on. My sister was standing in front of the plant, back to me, not moving. I called her name and she turned around slowly. Her face was blank, completely blank, like she wasn't home behind her eyes. She looked at me for a second and then turned back to the plant. I came down the stairs. The plant had 9 or 10 leaves all facing outward, every one of them angled toward my sister. And every single one had a face on it. Not my sister's face, not mine. Faces I didn't recognize. Different people, different ages. All of them wearing the same open-mouthed terror, pressed flat into the leaf like they were trying to push through from the other side. And in the center of the plant, the newest leaf, the one that had just unfurled in the last few days, had a face on it too. It was my sister's face, not like her face, her exact face, every detail right. The shape of her nose, the small scar under her left eye, the way her mouth looked when she was scared, all of it there, pressed into the leaf. Her eyes were wide. Her mouth was open in a scream. She was still standing right next to me, still alive, but her face was already on that plant. I grabbed her arm and pulled her toward the door. She came without fighting, still blank, still not really there. I got her outside and into the car and drove. I didn't go back for anything. No bag, no phone, nothing. I just drove until the sun came up. We've been at a motel for 8 days. My sister hasn't talked about it. She sits by the window and stares at nothing, and sometimes I catch her touching her own face slowly, like she's checking that it's still there. I don't know what the plant is. I don't know what it wants. I don't know if it's still in our house, or if it's already gone, already sitting on some other garage sale table with a $2 price tag on it, waiting for the next person to pick it up and bring it inside. I don't know if those faces in the leaves are dead. I don't know if they're trapped, or if they can feel anything where they are, or if they're just frozen there forever, screaming into a surface nobody ever looks at closely enough. But I know this. If you have a houseplant you don't remember buying, or one you picked up cheap from a stranger, look at the leaves tonight. Get close. Look at the surface of every leaf, especially the big flat ones. If you see something that looks like a face, don't tell yourself it's the lighting. Don't turn the light on, and convince yourself it was nothing. Get out. Don't take the plant with you. Don't try to throw it away. Just leave. Because if you wait until you're scared, it already has what it needs from you. And if you look at that leaf, and your own face is looking back at you, screaming, it's already too late. If this one got under your skin, drop a comment below and tell me how far you got before you stopped looking at your houseplants. Subscribe for new horror every week and hit the notification bell. because next week's story starts with something most of you do every single night before bed. You won't want to miss it.